The Arizona sun beat down mercilessly as I pulled my rental car into the driveway of my son's suburban home in Phoenix. After a 6-hour flight from Chicago, my 7-year-old bones were ready for some family time and maybe a cold beer. I had no idea that within 48 hours I'd discover my own son had hired someone to kill me. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening from in the comments. The Phoenix heat hit me like opening an oven door as I stepped out of Sky Harbor Airport. Even in October, Arizona didn't mess around. At 67, I'd learned to appreciate the dry heat over Chicago's humid summers, but this still took some getting used to. I adjusted my Cubs cap and scanned the pickup area for Marcus. Dad. My son's voice carried across the concrete divider, and I spotted him waving from behind the wheel of a silver Honda Accord. He looked older than I remembered from our video calls. More lines around his eyes, hair thinner on top. The real estate business in Phoenix must be rougher than he let on. Marcus jumped out to grab my suitcase, and I noticed his hands shaking slightly as he wrestled with the trunk. "You okay, son? Perfect? Just excited you're here?" His smile seemed forced, like he was trying too hard. "How was the flight? You look great, Dad. Retirement's treating you well." I studied his face as we pulled into traffic. Something was off. In 40 years of construction work, you learn to read people. Contractors trying to cut corners, suppliers making excuses, workers hiding problems. Marcus had that same look now, like a man carrying weight he didn't want to discuss. "Real estate market still tough?" I asked as we merged onto the freeway. "Oh, you know how it island ups and downs." He changed the subject quickly. "Wait until you see Emma. She's grown so much since Christmas. Jennifer's making your favorite, that beef stew with the dumplings." The suburban neighborhood looked nice enough. Middle-class homes with desert landscaping, kids' bikes, and driveways. But Marcus's house, when we pulled up, showed signs of deferred maintenance. Paint peeling around the window frames a loose gutter, dead spots in the front lawn that spoke of water bill worries. "Uncle Ronnie." Emma burst through the front door like a tiny tornado, all pigtails and gap-toothed grin. At 8 years old, she was the spitting image of her grandmother. My late wife Sarah would have melted seeing this little one. "There's my favorite granddaughter," I said, scooping her up despite my creaking knees. "Did you lose another tooth?" "2 teeth. The tooth fairy brought me $5 each time." She wiggled the new gaps proudly. "Daddy says inflation is making everything more expensive, even tooth fairy money." Jennifer appeared in the doorway, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She looked tired, the kind of bone-deep exhaustion I recognized from Sarah's teaching years, when she'd work late grading papers and worry about every student. But Jennifer's fatigue seemed different, heavier. "Ronnie, it's so good to see you." Her hug was genuine, grateful even. "I hope you're hungry. I've been cooking all day." The house smelled amazing, beef and herbs and something else that reminded me of home. But as Jennifer gave me the tour, I noticed things. Stack of unopened mail on the kitchen counter, the kind with red Finnel notice stamps. A disconnect notice from the electric company tucked under a coffee mug. The living room furniture looked worn, and there was a water stain on the ceiling that spoke of a roof leak nobody could afford to fix. "Bathroom's down the hall if you want to wash up," Jennifer said. "Dinner's almost ready." I passed Marcus's home office and glimpsed his desk, scattered papers, a calculator, and what looked like loan documents. He quickly closed the door when he saw me looking. Dinner was delicious, but the conversation felt strained. Emma chattered about school and friends, blissfully unaware of the tension between the adults. Jennifer asked about my garden and my neighbors back in Chicago. But Marcus picked at his food, checking his phone constantly. "Everything all right, son?" I asked when his phone buzzed for the 5th time. "Just work stuff. You know how it is. Clients don't respect boundaries." But his laugh sounded hollow. I watched him across the table, remembering the boy who used to help me frame houses during summer breaks, who'd ask a million questions about every tool and technique. That boy had been honest, curious, eager to learn. This man seemed like he was drowning in something he couldn't name. "Grandpa, will you read me a bedtime story?" Emma asked, tugging on my sleeve. "Of course, sweetheart. Pick out your favorite book." As she ran upstairs, I caught Jennifer and Marcus exchanging a look, worried, almost desperate. Jennifer's eyes were bright with unshed tears, and Marcus was gripping his fork so tight his knuckles had gone white. "Marcus," I said quietly, "if you're having problems, you know you can talk to me. Family helps family." For just a moment, his mask slipped. I saw something desperate flash across his face. Fear, maybe, or shame. But then he rebuilt that brittle smile. "Thanks, Dad. Really. But we're managing fine. Just the usual stuff. Mortgage bills, Emma's school expenses. Nothing we can't handle. But looking around the table at my family, I knew that wasn't true. Something was very wrong in this house, and my son was lying to me about it. The question was, why, and what he was so afraid to tell me. Saturday morning came with the kind of Arizona sunshine that made you grateful for air conditioning. I woke up in Marcus's guest room feeling more rested than I had in months. Maybe it was being around family again, or maybe it was just getting away from Chicago's October chill. The smell of coffee and bacon drew me downstairs, where I found Jennifer packing Emma's lunch for a sleepover at her friend's house. Morning Grandpa Emma bounced over for a hug, already dressed in her favorite unicorn pajamas. Mommy says I get to stay at Sarah's house tonight, and we're going to watch movies and paint our nails. Sounds like a perfect Saturday night for an 8-year-old, I said, ruffling her hair. You be good for Sarah's mom, okay? Marcus appeared from the kitchen, looking more relaxed than he had the night before. He'd showered and shaved, put on a clean polo shirt, the kind of effort that suggested he had plans. Dad, I was thinking, he said, handing me a mug of coffee. Since Emma's going to be out tonight, maybe you and I could grab a beer somewhere. Do some real father-son catching up, away from all the domestic chaos. I studied his face over my coffee mug. The desperate edge from last night was still there, but buried under what looked like genuine hope. Maybe I'd been reading too much into things. Maybe he really did just want to spend time with his old man. That sounds good, son. I'd like that. Great. His relief seemed disproportionate to my simple agreement. There's this place I go sometimes, Tommy's Roadhouse. Nothing fancy, just a neighborhood pub with good beer and decent burgers. The kind of place where you can actually have a conversation. Jennifer looked up from Emma's backpack, and I caught something in her expression, worry maybe, or resignation. But she just smiled and said, "That's nice. You two should have some time together." After Emma left for her sleepover, Marcus and I drove through suburban Phoenix toward what he called the older part of town. The neighborhoods got a little more weathered, the houses a little smaller. But it felt comfortable, reminded me of the working-class areas where I'd grown up. Tommy's Roadhouse sat on a corner lot, a low brick building with neon beer signs in the windows, and a parking lot full of pickup trucks and older sedans. The kind of place where construction workers stopped after their shifts and retirees nursed beers while watching baseball. This is perfect, I said as we walked in. The interior was exactly what I'd expected. Dark wood paneling, a long bar with worn leather stools, booths along the walls, and a big screen TV showing college football. The afternoon crowd was small but comfortable, everyone seeming to know each other. Marcus, the bartender, called out as we took seats at the bar. He was a stocky guy in his mid-40s with graying temples and the kind of bearing that suggested military service. His name tag read Tommy. Usual spot, thanks, Tommy. Dad, this is Tommy Rodriguez. He owns the place. Tommy, this is my father, Ronald. Tommy extended a calloused hand with a firm grip. Pleasure to meet you, sir. Marcus talks about you all the time. Says you built half of Chicago with your bare hands. Just did my job for 40 years, I said, liking him immediately. You serve in the military, Tommy. His posture straightened slightly. Army. 2 tours in Iraq. You Korea. Long time ago, but you never really forget. No, sir, you don't. He pulled 2 draft beers without being asked, perfect pints with just the right amount of head. First one's on the house for a fellow veteran. We settled into easy conversation about the Cubs' disappointing season, the heat wave Phoenix had been having, the challenges of running a small business. Marcus seemed more relaxed than I'd seen him since I arrived, though he kept checking his phone. Dad, he said during a lull in conversation, I've been thinking about some things. Financial planning stuff. Getting older, making sure everything's in order. Here it comes, I thought. Whatever had been eating at him was about to surface. I mean, you're 67 now, still in great shape, but he took a long pull of beer. Have you updated your will recently? Your insurance policies? The question felt loaded somehow, like he'd been working up to it all day. Why do you ask? Just wondering. If something happened to you, I'd want to make sure I could handle everything properly. Take care of the arrangements, settle your affairs. He was trying to sound casual, but there was an urgency underneath. What's your house worth these days? And your retirement accounts? I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. Marcus, are you in some kind of financial trouble? What? No, I mean not serious trouble. Just the usual stuff. Mortgage, credit cards, business expenses. But his hands were shaking again, and he wouldn't meet my eyes. I was just thinking you've worked so hard all your life, built up all these assets. It would be smart to have a plan. Before I could respond, Tommy appeared beside us, ostensibly wiping down the already clean bar. but I caught him watching Marcus with the kind of professional attention bartenders develop for reading customers. "Excuse me, sir," Tommy said quietly to me. "Could I speak with you for a moment?" Privately, Marcus looked up sharply. "Is there a problem?" "No problem at all," Tommy said smoothly. "Just wanted to show your father something in the back office. A photo from Korea. Thought he might be interested." I followed Tommy toward the back of the pub, leaving Marcus at the bar with his beer and his phone. Whatever Tommy wanted to show me, I had a feeling it wasn't going to be a photograph. Tommy closed the office door behind us and turned to face me, his expression grave. "Sir, I served 2 tours in Iraq. I know when someone's planning an ambush." His voice was low urgent. "Last night, your son was in here with 3 men I've never seen before. They were discussing what they called an elimination plan. And, sir, they were talking about you." The words hit me like a physical blow. "That's impossible. He's my son." "That's exactly why you need to listen to me," Tommy said, his eyes never leaving mine. "Because family betrayal is the most dangerous kind their island." My legs felt unsteady as I stared at Tommy, trying to process what he'd just said. "An elimination plan, Tommy? That's impossible. I know Marcus has problems, but he would never." "Sir, I wish I was wrong." Tommy moved to a small desk in the corner of his office where multiple security monitors showed different angles of the pub. "But I've got proof. Last night around closing time, your son came in with 3 men I'd never seen before. Professional types, if you know what I mean." He pulled up a chair beside the monitors and began scrolling through recorded footage. "Here." This was around 11 p.m. The black and white image was grainy, but clear enough. Marcus sat in a corner booth with 3 men who definitely didn't look like real estate clients. One was tall and lean with the predatory stillness of someone used to violence. Another was built like a linebacker hands that could crush concrete. The third had the quiet menace of someone who enjoyed his work too much. "Can you hear what they're saying?" My voice sounded foreign to my own ears. Tommy adjusted a dial, and suddenly voices filled the small office. The audio quality was better than I'd expected. 200,000 plus interest, a gravelly voice was saying. "That's what you owe, Green. Payments due Sunday night or we start collecting in other ways." Marcus's voice higher than normal with stress. "I understand that, Vinny. But I've got a solution. My father's worth more dead than alive. Life insurance policy for 500,000 plus his house, his retirement accounts. We're talking close to $1 million total." My blood turned to ice. I gripped the edge of Tommy's desk so hard my knuckles went white. The tall man's voice was cold, professional. "Make it look accidental. Heart attack, car accident, something natural for a 6-7-year-old man. No mess, no questions." "Exactly," Marcus said, and the eagerness in his voice made me sick. "He's got high blood pressure, works too hard, all that stubborn, independent stuff. Paramedics won't look too closely. What about the family?" The third voice, softer but somehow more menacing. "Wife, kids, anyone who might ask uncomfortable questions. No wife, she died 5 years ago. Just my wife Jennifer and our daughter Emma. But they won't be a problem." There was a pause then. Marcus continued with chilling casualness. "Jennifer barely balances the checkbook. She'll be grateful for the insurance money. And if she does start asking questions..." He didn't finish the sentence, but the implication hung in the air like poison. "Jesus Christ," I whispered. "He's talking about killing Jennifer and Emma too." Tommy's face was grim. "That's Vincent Castellano, Vinny. He's muscle for some very dangerous people. The other 2 work for him. They handle debt collection, intimidation, and worse when necessary." On the screen, I watched my son shake hands with my executioner, sealing a contract written in family betrayal. The man I'd raised taught to throw a baseball helped with homework. He was calmly planning my murder. "There's more," Tommy said, fast-forwarding the footage. They discussed timing. The audio crackled back to life. "Tomorrow night works best," Marcus was saying. "He'll be tired from the visit, probably want to drive back to his hotel early. I can suggest he take the scenic route through the mountains. Lots of curves, easy to stage an accident." "What about an alibi?" Vinny asked. "Dinner with the family. Jennifer and Emma will confirm I was home all evening. Perfect setup." Tommy stopped the recording and turned to face me. "Sir, that was less than 18 hours ago. They're planning to kill you tonight." I sat in stunned silence, trying to reconcile the loving father I'd been with the target I'd apparently become. 40 years of construction work had taught me to spot structural weaknesses, but I'd completely missed the rot in my own family foundation. "There's something else," Tommy said quietly. "Look at the live feed from camera 3. He switched to a real-time view of the pub's front entrance. Through the window, I could see Marcus still sitting at the bar, but now he was on his phone, speaking in animated whispers. And walking up the sidewalk toward the entrance was the tall man from the footage, Vinny Castellano. "They're meeting right now," Tommy said, probably confirming tonight's plan. I watched in horror as Vinny entered the pub and walked directly to Marcus. They shook hands like old business partners, then moved to the same corner booth where they'd planned my death the night before. "We need to get you out of here," Tommy said, standing up. "Right now, if they realize you've overheard anything." But I couldn't move. I was transfixed by the security monitor, watching my son discuss the details of my murder with a professional killer. Marcus was pointing toward the back of the pub now, probably explaining where I'd gone, wondering why I was taking so long. "Sir," Tommy's voice was urgent, "we need to move. Now." The reality of my situation finally hit me. I wasn't just a father who'd discovered his son's betrayal. I was a target who'd stumbled onto his own assassination plan. And if Marcus and Vinny realized what I knew, Jennifer and Emma would become loose ends that needed eliminating. "My granddaughter," I said, standing up on shaking legs. "Emma's at a sleepover, but Jennifer's home alone. If they think she might know something." "One crisis at a time," Tommy said, moving toward a back door I hadn't noticed. "First, we get you safe. Then we figure out how to protect your family and stop these bastards." Through the monitor, I could see Marcus checking his watch and looking around the pub with growing concern. Any minute now, he'd come looking for his father, and when he found Tommy's office empty, he'd know something had gone very wrong with his perfect plan. Tommy moved with military precision, pulling a small digital recorder from his desk drawer and quickly copying the security footage to a flash drive. "This is evidence," he said, handing me the drive. "Keep it safe. If something happens to me, get this to the police." "Nothing's going to happen to you," I said, pocketing the drive. "You've done enough already." "Sir, with respect, this isn't over until those bastards are behind bars." He moved to a filing cabinet and pulled out what looked like building schematics. "I've been thinking about this since last night. The bathroom window is your best bet. It's small, but you built houses for 40 years. You know how to squeeze through tight spaces." I studied the layout he showed me. The men's room was at the back of the building with a window that faced an alley. From there, I could make it to the street without passing through the main pub area where Marcus and Vinny were planning my death. "What about you?" I asked. "I'll handle Marcus. Tell him you got a phone call and had to step outside for privacy. Family emergency back in Chicago. That'll buy you maybe 10 minutes before he starts getting suspicious." Through the office door, I could hear the low murmur of conversation from the main pub. Marcus's voice higher than normal with stress, and another voice I now recognized as belonging to a professional killer. "There's something else," I said, the full weight of the situation settling on me. "They mentioned Jennifer and Emma as potential problems. If they think my family knows anything." Tommy's expression darkened. "One crisis at a time. First we get you safe, then we figure out how to protect them. But sir, you need to understand, this isn't just about money anymore. You've seen too much. They can't let you walk away." The reality hit me like a sledgehammer. Even if I gave Marcus every penny I had, it wouldn't matter now. I was a witness to a murder conspiracy. In their world, that meant I was already dead. "All right," I said, feeling something cold and hard settle in my chest. "Let's do this." Tommy led me through a storage room to the back of the building. The men's room was cramped, barely 6 feet wide, with a single window set high on the back wall. The glass was frosted, maybe 2 feet wide by 18 inches tall. Not much room for a 6-7-year-old man with arthritic joints. "I haven't climbed through a window since Korea," I muttered, studying the opening. "You did it then, you can do it now," Tommy said. "The drop's about 4 feet to the alley. There's a dumpster you can use to break your fall if needed." I grabbed the window frame and pulled myself up, feeling every one of my years in my protesting knees. The frame was metal, painted over so many times it was slick under my palms. For a terrifying moment, I thought I might fall backward onto the tile floor. But 40 years of construction work had taught me about leverage and balance. I wedged my shoulder through the opening, then worked my hips through, ignoring the sharp edge of the frame, digging into my ribs. The alley smelled of garbage and motor oil with an undertone of desert dust that reminded me this was still Arizona, despite feeling like I'd fallen into some crime movie. I hung from the window frame for a moment, then dropped to the pavement, rolling with the impact the way Sergeant Martinez had taught us during basic training 60 years ago. Some muscle memory never dies. I stayed low, moving along the building's back wall toward the street. Through the brick and mortar, I could hear the faint sounds of the pub continuing its Saturday afternoon routine. Somewhere in that warmth and normalcy, my son was coordinating my murder with a professional killer. The thought should have paralyzed me, but instead it sharpened my focus. I'd spent 4 decades solving problems. Structural issues, budget constraints, impossible deadlines. This was just another problem that needed solving, except the stakes were higher than any construction project I'd ever managed. I reached the corner of the building and peered around toward the front entrance. Marcus's Honda was still in the parking lot, along with a black sedan that probably belonged to Vinny. No sign of anyone watching the exits, but that didn't mean I was safe. 3 blocks away, I found what I was looking for. Rosie's all-night diner, the kind of place where construction workers grab coffee before dawn shifts, and night shift nurses decompress after long shifts. Bright lights, public space witnesses. The safest place I could think of at 3 in the afternoon. I ordered coffee and took a corner booth, where I could watch both the front door and the parking lot. My hands were steadier than I'd expected as I pulled out my phone and called Tommy. "You make it." His voice was tight with concern. "I'm safe for now. What's happening there?" Marcus is getting antsy. Keeps checking his phone, looking around. "I told him you got an emergency call about your neighbor's heart attack, had to step outside for privacy. He bought it, but he's starting to ask questions. How long do I have? Maybe 30 minutes before he starts looking for you. After that," Tommy's voice trailed off, but I understood. After that, Marcus would know his father had discovered the plan, and the timeline would accelerate from tonight to right now. "I need to think," I said. "Figure out how to protect Jennifer and Emma." "Sir, you need to call the police. This is beyond what civilians can handle." "With what evidence?" "A recording of a conversation that could be interpreted a dozen different ways. Marcus is my son. They'll think it's a family dispute that got out of hand." "Then what's your plan?" I stared out the diner window. At the Phoenix afternoon, watching normal people live their normal lives, while I tried to figure out how to save my family from my own son. "I don't know yet," I admitted. "But I've got to do something. Jennifer and Emma don't deserve to die because of Marcus's mistakes. Whatever you're thinking, don't try to handle this alone. These aren't amateurs." "I know." I ended the call and sat back in the booth, my coffee growing cold as I tried to process everything that had happened in the last hour. My son wanted me dead. Professional killers were involved. My daughter-in-law and granddaughter were considered acceptable casualties. And I was a 6-7-year-old retired construction worker with arthritis and high blood pressure trying to figure out how to stop them all. But I'd built things that lasted 40 years. I'd solved problems that seemed impossible. And I'd be damned if I was going to let Marcus destroy the innocent people in his own family. The question was how to stop him without getting everyone killed in the process. I sat in that diner booth for 20 minutes, nursing cold coffee and thinking like a construction foreman facing an impossible deadline. In my business, when you hit a problem that seems unsolvable, you break it down into smaller pieces. You gather information, assess your resources, and build a plan, one step at a time. The first step was understanding exactly what I was dealing with. I pulled out my phone and called my bank in Chicago. After navigating through automated menus and security questions, I finally reached a human being. "Mr. Green, how can I help you today?" The customer service representative sounded young, probably Emma's age. "I need to check on any recent activity on my accounts, particularly any loan applications or changes to my account information. Let me pull up your file." There was a pause, then typing. "Sir, I show 3 loan applications submitted in the past 6 months using your information. All were approved based on your credit rating and the collateral listed." My blood pressure spiked. "What collateral?" "Your primary residence in Chicago valued at $240,000. The applications show electronic signatures and include copies of your driver's license and social security card. I never applied for any loans. I never signed anything." Another pause, longer this time. "Sir, these signatures don't appear to match the samples we have on file from when you opened your account. I think you need to speak with our fraud department immediately." 20 minutes later, I had the full picture. Marcus had forged my signature on 3 separate loan applications using my house as collateral. Total amount $180,000. The money had been transferred to accounts I'd never heard of, and the first payment was due Monday tomorrow. "We can freeze the accounts and start a fraud investigation," the fraud specialist told me. "But sir, you need to file a police report. This is identity theft, forgery, and fraud. Serious felony charges." I hung up and stared at my phone, trying to process the scope of my son's betrayal. It wasn't just the murder plot. He'd been systematically stealing from me for months. But if he was desperate enough to forge loan documents, what else had he stolen? My next call was to Jennifer's elementary school. As a retired construction worker, I'd learned that Saturday afternoon was when administrators caught up on paperwork. Someone would be there. Washington Elementary, this is Principal Martinez. This is Ronald Green, Jennifer Green's father-in-law. I'm calling about the fundraising account she manages for the school. Oh, Mr. Green. Jennifer speaks about you often. Is everything all right? I hope so. Could you tell me the current balance in the fundraising account? There might be some irregularities. The pause that followed told me everything I needed to know. Mr. Green, I think you should come in Monday morning. There are some concerns about the account that Jennifer and I need to discuss. What kind of concerns? The balance should be around $15,000 from this year's activities. But according to our records, there's less than $500 remaining. Jennifer submitted withdrawal requests over the past 3 months, all properly signed and documented, but what? The withdrawals were for expenses that don't match any school activities, equipment purchases that were never delivered, contractor payments for work that was never done. I was planning to ask Jennifer about it Monday. My heart sank. Marcus hadn't just forged my signature. He'd been forging Jennifer's too, stealing from her workplace, destroying her professional reputation. Principal Martinez, I think Jennifer is a victim here, not a perpetrator. Someone has been forging her signature. That would actually make sense. Jennifer's been asking about budget discrepancies, seemed genuinely confused about some of the expenses. If someone had access to her signature, someone like her husband who saw her sign documents every day. I thanked the principal and hung up feeling sick. Marcus wasn't just destroying his own life. He was taking Jennifer's career down with him. But there was one more account I needed to check, the one that would hurt the most if my suspicions were correct. Emma's trust fund had been established when my wife Sarah died 5 years ago. Sarah had insisted that her life insurance money go into an account for Emma's education, something Marcus couldn't touch until Emma turned 18. The account should have about $50,000 by now. I called the trust company, went through the security verification, and asked for the current balance. I show a balance of $127.43, Mr. Green. The words hit me like a physical blow. That's impossible. There should be over $50,000 in that account. Sir, there have been numerous withdrawals over the past year, all properly authorized with the required documentation showing educational expenses for the beneficiary. What kind of educational expenses? Private tutoring, educational software, specialized equipment for learning disabilities. The withdrawals were approved based on signed requests from the child's father, who is listed as the account guardian. Marcus had stolen his own daughter's future. Sarah's final gift to her granddaughter, meant to ensure Emma could go to college, was gone. Spent on gambling debts and God knows what else. I sat back in the diner booth, overwhelmed by the scope of the betrayal. It wasn't just about wanting me dead for insurance money. Marcus had been systematically stealing from everyone who trusted him. Me, Jennifer, even his own 8-year-old daughter. The waitress refilled my coffee cup and gave me a concerned look. You okay, honey? You look like you've seen a ghost. Something like that, I managed. My phone buzzed with a text from Tommy Marcus, getting agitated. Asking lots of questions about your emergency call. How much longer do you need? I typed back. Found more problems. Much worse than we thought. Give me another hour. But even as I sent the message, I knew an hour wouldn't be enough. The scope of Marcus's crimes was staggering. Identity theft, forgery, embezzlement, conspiracy to commit murder. And now I had to figure out how to protect Jennifer and Emma from the consequences of his actions. Because if Marcus was willing to kill his own father for money, what would he do to a wife who might discover his theft from her workplace? What would he do to a daughter whose trust fund he'd already stolen? The answer was in that security footage Tommy had shown me. Jennifer and Emma were complications that could be eliminated. I pulled out the flash drive Tommy had given me and stared at it. This little piece of plastic contained evidence of multiple felonies, but it also contained a death sentence for my family if Marcus realized what I knew. The question was what to do with it, and how to save the innocent people my son was willing to destroy. The Phoenix Police Department's non-emergency number connected me to Detective Maria Santos, who listened patiently as I explained the situation. Her questions were sharp, professional, and gave me hope that someone in authority was taking this seriously. Mr. Green, what you're describing constitutes multiple felony charges, she said after I'd outlined everything. Identity theft, forgery, embezzlement, and conspiracy to commit murder. The audio recording you mentioned, can you bring that in? Yes, but there's a timing issue. My son thinks I'm handling a family emergency in Chicago. If he realizes I know about his plans, how long do we have? I checked my watch. I'd been gone from the pub for almost 2 hours. Maybe not long. He's supposed to kill me tonight. Sir, I need you to come in immediately. Bring all the evidence you have. We can put you in protective custody while we sort this out. What about my daughter-in-law and granddaughter? They're targets too. We can protect them as well, but I need to see what we're working with first. Can you be here in 30 minutes? I agreed and hung up, feeling a mixture of relief and urgency. The legal system was taking this seriously, but time was running out. My next call was to David Chen, an attorney I'd worked with during Sarah's estate planning. He was in his office, despite it being Saturday afternoon, probably catching up on paperwork like everyone else seemed to be doing. Ronald, good to hear from you. What can I do for you? I gave him the abbreviated version. The murder plot, the financial crimes, the need to protect Jennifer and Emma. David's responses grew increasingly grave as I talked. This is serious criminal territory, Ronald. But there are civil remedies too. We can get emergency restraining orders, freeze any accounts Marcus has access to, and start recovery proceedings for the stolen funds. How fast can we move on this? I can have paperwork ready by Monday morning. The trust fund recovery should be straightforward. There's a clear paper trail of unauthorized withdrawals. The school embezzlement will be trickier, but if Jennifer was a victim of forgery, we can protect her job and reputation. What about my house? He used it as collateral for loans I never signed. That's identity theft, pure and simple. We can get those loans declared fraudulent and clear the liens. It'll take time, but your property is protected. For the first time in hours, I felt like I had allies who knew what they were doing. The legal system might move slowly, but it was thorough, and it was on my side. I was organizing my notes when my phone rang. Tommy's number. Sir, we have a problem. Marcus just left the pub, and he looked like a man on a mission. He kept asking about your emergency call, wanted to know which hospital, which neighbor. I think he's starting to put things together. My blood chilled. Where did he go? Drove toward his house. But sir, there's something else. Right before he left, he made a phone call. I couldn't hear much, but I caught the words tonight and now instead of later. The timeline was accelerating. Whatever Marcus had planned for tonight was moving up to right now. I'm heading to the police station, I told Tommy. Can you? My phone buzzed with an incoming call. Marcus's number. He's calling me, I told Tommy. I have to take this. I switched lines, trying to keep my voice normal. Hello, son. Dad, where are you? I've been looking all over for you. Marcus's voice was tight with barely controlled panic. Tommy said something about a neighbor having a heart attack. That's right. Mrs. Patterson from next door. I'm at the hospital now. Which hospital? I'll come meet you. The lie came easily, surprisingly. Northwestern Memorial. But son, there's really no need. Which room? I'll be there in 20 minutes. Marcus, I appreciate the concern, but Dad... His voice changed, became harder. Which room is she in? He was testing me, and we both knew it. If I couldn't provide details about a fictitious hospital visit, he'd know I was lying. And if he knew I was lying... Room 314, I said, picking numbers at random. But visiting hours are almost over. Maybe tomorrow would be better. I'll be there in 15 minutes. Wait for me in the lobby. The line went dead, and I stared at my phone in growing horror. Marcus was driving to Northwestern Memorial Hospital, where he expected to find his father waiting in the lobby. When I didn't show up, he'd know for certain that something had gone wrong with his plan. I called Tommy back immediately. He's driving to Northwestern Memorial. Expects to meet me there in 15 minutes. Jesus. What do you want to do? I'm going to the police station. But Tommy, if he figures out I'm not at that hospital, he'll know you overheard something at the pub. And if he knows that, Jennifer and Emma become immediate targets instead of eventual ones. I was already standing up, throwing money on the diner table. I need to get to Jennifer's house, warn her, get her and Emma somewhere safe. Sir, that's exactly what he'll expect you to do. It could be a trap. Then what choice do I have? Let him kill them while I hide behind police protection. Tommy was quiet for a moment. There might be another way. What if we force his hand, make him come to us instead of going after them? How? Meet me at the pub. I've got an idea, but it's going to require some courage on your part. I looked toward the diner's parking lot, then toward the direction of Jennifer's house, then toward downtown, where the police station waited with safety and proper procedure. Three choices: hide behind police protection while my family faced danger, rush to Jennifer's house and potentially walk into a trap, or trust Tommy's plan, whatever it was. In 40 years of construction, I'd learned that sometimes the most dangerous option was also the only one that actually solved the problem. "I'll be there in 10 minutes, I told Tommy. As I walked toward my rental car, my phone buzzed with a text message from Marcus' dad. "I'm at Northwestern Memorial." "Where are you?" The timeline had just collapsed from hours to minutes. Whatever was going to happen, it was going to happen now. I drove straight to Marcus's house, my hands steady on the wheel despite everything. Tommy's plan was simple: force Marcus to reveal his true nature in front of Jennifer with witnesses and evidence. No more hiding, no more lies. Just the truth, ugly as it was. The suburban street looked peaceful in the late afternoon Sunday. Kids' bikes in driveways, sprinklers running on front lawns, the kind of neighborhood where families were supposed to be safe. I parked in Marcus's driveway and walked to the front door like I belonged there. Because I did belong there. I was the grandfather, the father-in-law, the family protector, and it was time to do my job. Jennifer answered the door with Emma beside her, both of them smiling with genuine warmth. "Ronnie, we weren't expecting you back so soon. How's your neighbor? We need to talk," I said, stepping inside. "All of us." "Is Marcus here? He went to meet you at the hospital," Jennifer said, confusion creeping into her voice. "He said Mrs. Patterson had a heart attack." "There is no Mrs. Patterson," I said quietly, "and I wasn't at any hospital." Emma looked between us with the sharp intuition children have for adult tension. "Grandpa, is something wrong?" Before I could answer, Marcus's Honda pulled into the driveway with a screech of brakes. Through the front window I could see his face. Rage and panic fighting for control. He'd figured out there was no hospital visit, no neighbor emergency. He knew I'd been lying. The front door slammed open and Marcus stormed in like a man who'd run out of options. "Dad." His voice was deadly quiet. "We need to talk. Now." "Yes, we do." I pulled out the flash drive Tommy had given me and set it on the coffee table. "We need to talk about murder plots and stolen money and the kind of man you've become." Jennifer's face went white. "What are you talking about?" "Your husband hired professional killers to murder me for my life insurance money," I said, never taking my eyes off Marcus. "He's also stolen $180,000 by forging my signature on loan documents, embezzled from your school fundraising account, and cleaned out Emma's college trust fund." "That's insane," Marcus said, but his voice cracked. "Dad, you're having some kind of breakdown." "Am I?" I held up the flash drive. "This contains security footage of you planning my death with Vincent Castellano and his associates. Audio and video, Marcus. Your voice, your face, your handshake sealing the deal." Emma moved closer to Jennifer, sensing the danger even if she didn't understand it. Jennifer wrapped her arms around her daughter, staring at her husband with growing horror. "Marcus," she whispered, "tell me this isn't true." For a moment his mask completely slipped. I saw the desperate, cornered animal he'd become, trapped by his own choices with nowhere left to run. "You don't understand," he said, pulling out his phone with shaking hands. "I'm drowning here. The gambling debts, the interest, these people don't negotiate. They just collect." He was dialing a number, and I had a terrible feeling I knew who he was calling. "Marcus, don't make this worse," I said. "Worse?" He laughed, a broken sound. "Dad, it can't get worse. I'm dead either way. But maybe if I deliver what I promised." The call connected. "Vinny, it's Marcus." "Yeah, I know it's early, but we have a problem. My father knows about tonight. He's here now with evidence." Jennifer's grip on Emma tightened. "Marcus, what are you doing? What I should have done from the beginning," he said into the phone. "Handling this myself." "Yeah, bring the others. Same address I gave you before." He hung up and looked at us with something that might have been regret if there'd been any humanity left in his eyes. "Dad, I'm sorry it came to this. I really am. But you forced my hand. By refusing to let you murder me, I kept my voice calm, but my mind was racing. Professional killers were coming to this house where my granddaughter was playing with her toys just hours ago." "By being stubborn and selfish," Marcus snapped. "Your whole life it's been about what you wanted, what you thought was right, never about what I needed. I needed a father who supported me, who believed in me, who would sacrifice for his son when it mattered. I offered you $200,000, I said quietly. No questions asked. Pocket change." His voice was getting higher, more desperate. "You have over $1 million in assets, and you offered me pocket change while I'm facing a death sentence." Emma started crying, frightened by the shouting. Jennifer pulled her daughter behind the couch, trying to shield her from whatever was happening between the men and her family. "Marcus, please," Jennifer said. Emma's scared. Can't we just shut up? He whirled on her with sudden fury. This is your fault, too. If you'd been a better wife, if you'd supported me, instead of questioning every expense, maybe I wouldn't have had to. He stopped himself, but the damage was done. Jennifer's face went from confusion to understanding to horror. The school account, she whispered. You stole from the school. I borrowed it. I was going to pay it back. With what money we can barely make the mortgage payments. The sound of car doors slamming came from the driveway. Through the front window I could see 3 men walking toward the house with the purposeful stride of professionals about to do unpleasant work. Marcus, I said urgently, whatever you owe these people, we can figure something else out. But don't let them hurt Jennifer and Emma. Too late for that, he said, and there was something dead in his voice now. They're witnesses. They know too much. That's when Emma broke away from her mother and ran to me, wrapping her small arms around my waist. Grandpa, I'm scared, she sobbed into my shirt. And that's when Marcus made the choice that destroyed whatever was left of his soul. He grabbed Emma's arm and pulled her away from me, his grip tight enough to make her cry out in pain. Nobody moves, he said, his voice shaking. Nobody calls for help. You do exactly what these men tell you to do, or Emma gets hurt. The front door opened, and Vincent Castellano walked into my son's living room like he owned it. Behind him came the 2 men from the security footage, professional killers treating this like just another day at the office. But when Vinny saw Marcus holding his own daughter as a human shield, something changed in his expression. Kid, he said quietly, we don't work with people who use children as leverage. In the distance, growing louder, came the sound of sirens. The police sirens grew louder, and Vinny Castellano looked at Marcus with genuine disgust. Kid, there are lines you don't cross, he said, his voice cold as winter. Using your own daughter as a shield, that's not business. That's sick. He turned to his associates. We're done here. This amateur just became more trouble than he's worth. The front door burst open as Phoenix police officers flooded into the living room, weapons-drawn voices shouting commands. Detective Santos was among them, her eyes immediately assessing the situation. Professional killers, a terrified child, and a desperate man holding his own daughter. Let the girl go, Marcus, she said calmly. Nobody needs to get hurt here. You don't understand, Marcus said, his voice breaking. I'm dead either way. At least this way. This way you traumatize your daughter and guarantee yourself life in prison. Detective Santos interrupted. Or you let her go and maybe we can work something out. Emma was crying, now scared and confused, reaching toward me with her free hand. Grandpa, help me. That's when Jennifer found her voice and her courage. Marcus Green, she said, her voice carrying the authority of an elementary school teacher who dealt with countless difficult children. You let go of our daughter right now. Whatever problems you have, Emma didn't create them and she's not going to solve them. Something in her tone, maternal fierce, absolutely uncompromising, cut through Marcus's desperation. His grip on Emma loosened and she broke away, running straight to me. I scooped her up, holding her tight, while police officers surrounded Marcus and the professional killers who'd already raised their hands in surrender. It's over, sweetheart, I whispered into her hair. Grandpa's got you. You're safe now. The legal proceedings moved faster than I'd expected. The evidence was overwhelming. Audio recordings, financial documents, witness testimony from Tommy and Marcus's own confession in front of multiple police officers. Vincent Castellano and his associates were looking at serious prison time, but they cooperated fully once they realized Marcus had involved a child. Professional criminals have standards, Detective Santos explained to me later. Threatening children violates every code they live by. Your son made enemies of the very people he hired. Marcus pled guilty to conspiracy to commit murder, identity theft, forgery, and embezzlement. 8 years in federal prison with the possibility of parole in 5 if he participated in rehabilitation programs. It was justice, but it felt hollow knowing Emma would grow up without her father. The financial recovery took months, but David Chen proved to be worth every penny of his legal fees. The fraudulent loans were voided, my house was cleared of liens, and Emma's trust fund was fully restored with interest penalties paid by the banks that had processed the illegal withdrawals. Jennifer's situation at Washington Elementary was more complicated, but Principal Martinez proved to be understanding once the full scope of the forgery was revealed. Jennifer, you were as much a victim as anyone, she told us during a meeting the following week. Your reputation here is intact. In fact, the way you've handled this crisis shows exactly the kind of character we want in our teachers. The divorce proceedings were swift and uncontested. Marcus signed away all parental rights from his prison cell, perhaps the one decent thing he'd done in years. Jennifer legally changed Emma's last name back to her maiden name, Emma Chen, giving her daughter a fresh start. But the real healing happened slowly in small moments over the following months. Emma, asking fewer questions about where Daddy went. Jennifer, smiling more often, the weight of financial stress and marital deception lifting from her shoulders. Family dinners, where conversation flowed naturally instead of tiptoeing around dangerous subjects. Tommy became a fixture in our lives, the honorary uncle who'd helped save our family. His pub became our regular gathering place for Sunday dinners, where Emma would show off her latest school projects and Jennifer would relax with people who genuinely cared about her well-being. 1 year later, I stood in the backyard of my new Phoenix home. I'd sold the Chicago house and moved to be closer to Jennifer and Emma, watching my granddaughter blow out 9 candles on her birthday cake. "Make a wish, sweetheart," Jennifer said, her arm around Emma's shoulders. Emma closed her eyes tight, concentrating with the seriousness only children bring to birthday wishes. When she opened them and blew out the candles in one breath, everyone cheered. "What did you wish for?" Tommy asked, cutting slices of chocolate cake. "I can't tell you or it won't come true," Emma said with 9-year-old wisdom. "But it already is coming true." She looked at me with Sarah's eyes, bright with joy and security. "Grandpa, will you teach me how to build a treehouse?" Mom says. "You're the best builder in the whole world." "I'd love to, sweetheart. We'll start planning it tomorrow." As the afternoon sun painted everything golden, I watched Jennifer laugh at something Tommy said while Emma ran around the yard with the neighbor kids who'd become her new friends. This was what family was supposed to look like, not perfect but real. Built on truth instead of lies, protection instead of exploitation, love instead of manipulation. Marcus had tried to destroy us for money, but in the end he'd only succeeded in showing us what really mattered. Not the size of bank accounts or the value of insurance policies, but the bonds between people who choose to care for each other, protect each other, and build something lasting together. Emma ran back to me, chocolate frosting on her chin and pure happiness in her eyes. "Grandpa, this is the best birthday ever," she said, hugging my waist tight. "It's pretty good," I agreed, ruffling her hair. "But I have a feeling next year's going to be even better. Because that's what real family does. We don't just survive the storms together. We use them to build something stronger, something that lasts, something worth protecting for the next generation." And as I looked around at the people who'd become my chosen family, Jennifer, Emma, Tommy, and the community that had rallied around us, I knew Sarah would have been proud of what we'd built from the wreckage of Marcus's. Betrayal. Some things are worth more than money. Some bonds are stronger than blood. And sometimes the family you choose is the family that saves you. Sometimes the greatest betrayals come from those closest to our hearts, but they also reveal the true strength of family bonds, built on love rather than blood. Ronald Green thought he was just visiting his son for a weekend in Phoenix. Instead, he discovered that real family isn't about who shares your DNA. It's about who's willing to protect you when the world turns dangerous. In a society where trust seems fragile and family relationships grow more complicated each year, Ronald's story reminds us that wisdom, courage, and moral clarity can triumph over greed and manipulation. The grandfather who refused to be a victim became the protector who saved innocent lives, proving that experience and determination are more powerful than youth and desperation. If this story moved you, please subscribe to our channel and share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever had to make difficult choices to protect your family? We'd love to hear your experiences and wisdom.